So the sisters sent a message to Jesus. Lord, he whom you love is ill.
When Jesus arrives, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days.
Lord, if you would have been here, my brother would not have died.
Jesus began to weep.
Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died.
Your brother will rise again. I am the resurrection and the life.
Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God.
The dead man came out, his hands and his feet bound with strips of cloth, and his face wrapped in a cloth.
Jesus said to them, unbind him and let him go. I'm Ben McLeod, and I'm a senior at Greystone Day School. I will attend UNCC in the fall, and I plan to study mechanical engineering. I have pretty much been at First Presbyterian my whole life.
I'm Holland Currie. I'm a senior at Holland Christian School. In the fall, I'll move to Coley and attend Western Carolina University to study social work.
I'm Wainwright. I'm a senior at Albemarle High School. In the fall, I will attend the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill to study biology and Spanish. I have attended First Presbyterian Church my entire life, and I became a member whenever I was 12. As we prepare to graduate this year, we have spent time reflecting on our experiences in high school and in this church. We have reflected on the ways we have been challenged and cared for in this congregation. We have noticed that we can relate to some of the experiences of the people in this story. This passage not only depicts an incredible sign by Jesus, but shows us many awakenings. Throughout this passage, the characters are being awakened by some truth, some reality about Jesus Christ. As we read the passage, we each found pieces that spoke to us. We found that we could relate to the experiences of the characters, their fears, their joys, their misgivings. Several times in this passage, Mary, Martha, and those around them are confronted with the harsh reality that the world is not always an easy place, and things do not always work out the way we expected them to. As we finish our high school years and reflect back on them, we find that their challenges, their pain, their struggles are not necessarily foreign.
After sending a message to Jesus about their predicament, Martha and Mary had to wait for Jesus to arrive and heal. This was probably the most difficult thing they had ever done, especially when it was clear that Lazarus was getting closer and closer to death each day. I can't say I have ever had to do something as difficult as what they did, but I have faced some smaller difficulties. Speaking in front of a large number of people is something I find hard to do. It doesn't matter if those people are strangers, classmates, or people I've known my whole life. Speaking just becomes way more difficult when I try to do it from a crowd. I know I'm not the only one who feels this way. I don't think I've ever actually met someone who likes to speak in front of crowds, but despite not wanting to do it, I do it anyways.
Mary and Martha have asked Jesus to heal Lazarus. After Jesus failed to heal him, Mary and Martha seem to blame Jesus for Lazarus' death. Jesus begins to weep. I began to think about this specific part of the passage. I thought about the impact we have on God when we ask him for things. There are times in my life where I feel as if I've asked God for too much. This became especially known when I traveled to Montagne de Luz last summer on a mission trip. For those of you who don't know, Montagne de Luz is an orphanage that helps children affected by HIV and AIDS in Honduras. While in Honduras, I was able to hear stories of children younger than me who have it worse than I could have ever imagined. When I looked into their faces every morning and when I think about them today, my heart aches. I'm frustrated with the fact that I had once thought that I had it bad. I think back to some of the things I've complained about, and I get disappointed in myself. I know God has a high tolerance when it comes to people asking for unnecessary things, but it pains me to think I might have made God weep.
When Jesus finally reached Bethany, Lazarus was dead and had been for 4 days. Martha confronted Jesus and expressed her frustration. Not only was her brother dead, but he may have been saved if Jesus left immediately instead of waiting, staying where he was for a few extra days. I have felt similarly when I suffered from tumor-like growths in my left ear called cholesteatomas. As a result of these cholesteatomas, I now have a severe hearing deficit in my left ear. It wasn't the worst thing that could happen to me, but it wasn't the best either. Less fortunate people than me deal with far worse hardships every day of their lives. This caused me to think, if God is with us, Why do bad things happen? Why are there famines, droughts, and epidemics? I feel that my time at First Presbyterian has brought me closer to answering that question, but I am still far from answering.
I did not grow up in this congregation. My family joined the church when I was in 9th grade. At first, visiting the church and the youth group was difficult. It felt a bit slow. I had to make new friends and wasn't sure what to make of these people. But as we started to spend time and got to know each other, I was able to open up and be myself in the group. Throughout my high school years, we have done a lot of things together. We participated in mission projects, we slept in church and overnight walk-ins, and we did things together. As we did things together, it felt like we bonded as a group. What first seemed like an extreme challenge turned out to be a great blessing.
Martha confronts Jesus. She and Mary do not understand why Jesus failed to save Lazarus. The feeling Mary and Martha are experiencing is something I know relatively well. In my life, I've experienced many times where I feel lost. I feel as if I cannot find God, and all I want to do is ask Him why He isn't there. This feeling is present when I see what's happening around me in our world, similar to what Ben was saying. There are things we aren't necessarily responsible for, the famines, the droughts. And then there are things that people do directly, the violent outbreaks, the terrorism. These events are the ones that frustrate me the most. Why doesn't God stop terrorism? What is stopping God? Anyone in this room can see that our world is full of hate, but I'm unable to see why God doesn't do anything about it.
Just as we have found ourselves relating to these challenges these characters face, we look back upon our faith journeys, upon our lives as members of this congregation, and find ourselves in their moments of hope as well. As a senior, I can look back and see many of the difficult things I did while at First Presbyterian and how they made me a better person and a better Christian. Through our church, I did lots of community service. I helped serve meals at the community inn, built ramps for people who could no longer use stairs, and cleaned houses with homes of hope. The work I did made me realize that community service really does have an impact, but only if it is done consistently. I remember when being nervous the first time I was the acolyte. I thought everything would go wrong. I thought I would go out the wrong time, that the flame would sputter out before I reached the front, or that I wouldn't be able to light the candle quickly and get stuck up there for a whole minute. Despite my worries, nothing bad actually happened. When Advent came around, I became nervous all over again. Fortunately, nothing bad happened again until I had to extinguish the candles. When I went up, my worst fear became true. I couldn't put out the flame. In my panic, I blew out the candle, much to the amusement of the congregation at the time. While this was something small for everyone else, it was a big deal for me. I thought that I would get in trouble for messing up my job, but I didn't. Thanks to that small moment in church, I was able to become a bit more confident in front of crowds.
Martha is awakened, and she has declared she believes in God and that He is the Messiah. There have been times in my faith journey that have been particularly eye-opening for me. As I previously mentioned, I went on a mission trip to Honduras. By far, the week I spent at Montagne de Luz was the most alive my faith has ever been. I found myself at first struggling with the circumstances of the children, but later I felt my faith flourish because I realized that the children at Montagne de Luz are happy, if not happier, than most of the people in this congregation. And that is why Montagne de Luz was so life-changing for me. The children there have so little, yet they are happy with their little. While we were in Honduras, our group of mission workers built a sidewalk to connect the residential building on campus to the homeschool building. And I remember the day after we finished, I rolled out of my bed and I came out of my room and I saw 4 or 5 kids just running up and down the sidewalk, smiling and dancing like I've never seen before. And that was one of my greatest awakenings.
There have been many moments of awakening in my life. One of them that stands out, especially as I finished my time in high school, was my experience at Montreat. Montreat is a great experience. It is a place to get away from all the everyday stuff of life. Montreat is a place to meet all youth from all over the country. Throughout the interactions we had there in small groups into which we were placed, we got to know other people. These small groups made it easier to get to know new people. We were also able to talk about faith much easier and quicker than we would if we were on our own. In my time at Montreat, I laughed a lot and spent a lot of time meeting new people. I also learned a lot and felt close to God.
As I struggled with my doubt, I thought I would actually lose my faith in God. Instead of losing my faith like I feared, I actually became stronger. I'm not the only Christian to struggle with doubt, and for a while I thought that doubting meant I couldn't be a true Christian. When I learned in church that others struggled with doubt and remained Christian, I knew that I could do it too. However, I would be lying if I said I was completely doubt-free. I don't know if I'll ever know why bad things happen, or if I'll ever think about it without feeling doubt, but I do believe my time at FBC has brought me closer to that point. Nothing will get accomplished if I do nothing but think and doubt. Even though I don't know the best thing to do, I do know that taking an action is a step in the right direction and will have more of an impact than my thoughts ever will. Thanks to the time I spent at FBC, I've become a better person and even better Christian.
Lazarus has awoken, and people know Jesus is legit. There have been times in my faith journey when God has really came through for me. This could be a person he put into my life, an acceptance into an amazing school, or even little things that I never even realized. I'm able to recognize God the most through the people around me. God came through when he gave me my family, when he gave me my friends, and of course, when he gave me my congregation. I see God especially in certain people who have touched my faith. For instance, Billie Jean Snuggs. Every time I think about Billie Jean, one specific story comes to mind. Billie Jean offered to drive me to Montreat, another place where I feel like my faith is especially strong. On the car ride up there, in between rambling about wit and talking about my schoolwork, Billie Jean said to me, "I just look at the things that have happened in your life, and I believe that God has always had a special hand on you." After we both stopped crying, I began to think about how big of a blessing Billie Jean was in that moment and to this world now. Her strength, not only in her faith, but every day, has given me a role model to look up to as I continue my faith journey. I thank God not only for showing me how legit he is through Billie Jean, but through other people who have touched my faith.
I have also felt the real presence of God through people in this congregation, especially one of our youth advisors, Taylor Joel. In the time that Taylor has been a youth advisor, we have gotten to know one another. She has always cared for and about me, and I have gotten to know her children, Marshall and Matt. In return, both my sister Virginia and I have supported Taylor through some difficult times. In the friendship that we have shared over the past 4 years, I have seen the presence of God. In the love that Taylor has shown me and my family, I have seen the love of Jesus. I thank God for showing me how real he is through Taylor.
I have been awakened when my doubt turned into faith.
I have been awakened when the bad times turned out okay.
I have been awakened when I'm exposed to different perspectives.
God has the power to awaken us from inaction to action, from doubt to faith.
God has the power to awaken us from our fears and our misgivings to support and friendship.
God has the power to awaken us from pain to comfort, from our limited perspective to a broader understanding. God has the power to awaken us from death to life.
Amen.
Amen.